Hi, everybody. We're so glad that you have joined us this afternoon. We are here to help you find your style, and we hope that we accomplish that even in some small way. My name is Joan Cannon. I'm the Administrative Director here at Anthony Slabaugh Remodeling and Design. And I am joined today by Nick Boka. He is the designer here at Anthony Slabaugh Remodeling. And we also are so happy to have Lindsey, Putzier, the owner and principal designer of Eclectic Interiors in Hudson.
Hello.
So the three of us together are excited to do this webinar, and we hope that it's fun and productive time for you. We're going to start off with a quick poll, and we'll have another one at the end. But the first one is a question about the current style of your home.
There's two questions here too. The first one is multiple choice. Actually, both of them are multiple choice. So feel free to choose multiple if you don't, or you just don't know how to answer. Feel free to just say other.
So what is the current style of your home? And the second question is, how would you describe your personal style? How you want your home to be styled? Both multiple choice. So we'll give a few more seconds for that question, and then we will look at the results of it. So hopefully this will be interesting and fun. So let's see what we have.
That would be interesting to see some of the results here. Aha, as the style, what style? There you go. Yep.
Huh.
That's funny.
That's legitimate. It's fine.
That's where even as a designer, I have to admit that I answered that as well too. My home is always a work in progress. So.
Yep.
And also not surprising, farmhouse, modern farmhouse is kind of one of the top styles that everyone's interested in. So very cool.
That's interesting. Okay, we'll have another question at the end of our webinar, but for now, we're going to move on to some considerations that you might want to think about when you are figuring out your style. The first one that we thought of was to design styles are best communicated visually. Obviously, pictures are better than words.
Absolutely.
If you think about that, it's, you know, you can find pictures in different magazines, different websites, which leads to the next consideration, utilizing digital resources. That's huge. Everybody loves Pinterest. House is a great website where you can put together idea books and just, you can use that for yourself or even the people that are working for you, with you on your project. The next one is my favorite. How do you want the space to feel? Or how do you want to feel when you're in the space? Do you want it to be calm, warm, and calm? Do you want it to be like crazy, energetic, and exciting? Or just more quiet? There's lots of ways to make a space feel. So that's important. And then the next one that we thought of was to make your home your own. That's pretty self-explanatory, but what we mean by that is think of what you like, not necessarily what your family likes or your friends like or what the trends are, but more of what fits your personality and what you really enjoy. And then we thought of resale. Should that be something to consider or not? Well, you don't want to ignore it, but you also don't want to focus on that. I believe that anything that is well designed will have a positive effect on your resale if you decide to do that. But again, think about what you like and not what might be best 10 years from now.
Absolutely, especially with design, you know, styles changing, and trends changing, and everything like that. You can do a lot of different design styles and do them well, and that will only improve your resale value. But if you're designing your home to look something like something out of Swiss Family Robinson, their treehouse or something, might not end up being a positive people are coming in. But depending on how long you plan on living in your home and everything, resale value is more important to some and less important to others.
And the next one on our list is choosing focal points. By that, we mean, gosh, it could be a piece of furniture that you want to build around. It could be your favorite color, or a rug or a blanket, something that you just really love, and you can build from that and have everything flow around it.
It could also be in cabinetry or your countertops. Maybe you really want to have just a splash of color on the countertops, or something has a really cool design detail to it. So what is going to be, what is the style and the colors and everything in your space going to center around? And it could be a blanket or furniture, those things like Joan mentioned, or it could be the countertops, or you know, window dressings or a wallpaper or something like that.
I always call that the star. What do you want the star of the room to be?
Yeah.
And you only have 1 or 2 stars usually per space. I mean, it's very difficult to have a whole room made up of all stars, because then where do you look? Where, you don't. I mean, your eyes are just going to go spinning around in their head. So those are the stars.
That's a great example, Lindsay. Yeah. And then blending styles. I used to think you couldn't put wood and metal together, and now I do it all the time. So there's just so much that you can do with that to help your home flow, and just even room to room. But you don't have to do that. So it's just something to think about. It's a great way to find your own style and just add a different personality, instead of having just a complete strict one style.
Yeah, just remember that there's no strict rules when it comes to styles. I mean, if you have a very contemporary house, but you have a 200-year-old chair you've inherited from some relative, you can still put that in there and make it work. You just kind of have to build around it. So don't feel like you're violating some unspoken rule if you do have multiple things that you've collected over the years. It's okay to blend those together.
Yeah, yeah. So now we're going to hand it over to the experts, Lindsay and Nick, and they're going to talk about the different design styles and just introduce you to some things that you might not have thought about.
All right. Thanks so much, Joan. Appreciate it. And for everybody that's out there watching right now, if you have any questions or anything like that, we've got the Q&A part of this Zoom meeting, so you can click on that and send a question. You can use the chat function as well too if you want. You know, we'll get those sort of things. We'll have some other contact information at the end of the webinar as well too, if you have anything you really wanted to discuss with us about, whether you discuss that with one of us or Joan or myself or with Lindsay. We'd be happy to be in touch with you guys afterwards. So concerning design styles, there's a ton of different design styles out there, from traditional to transitional to contemporary, rustic, so on and so forth. There's all these different names and adjectives to describe design styles out there. Asian, coastal, industrial, on and on and on. These aren't even all of them that are out there. And so whenever Joan was saying that design style is best communicated visually, it's because what is farmhouse to one person might end up being industrial to another, or what is contemporary to somebody might be modern to another person. So we're going to get into some of the more common design styles, at least around this region here of Northeast Ohio, to talk a little bit about the kind of the high points of those styles and how you can kind of point them out, figure out you know, what makes something traditional versus transitional versus rustic or farmhouse, those sort of things, and maybe help you guys to figure out, you know, maybe this will be inspiration for you to figure out what design style is best for you and give you some ideas as far as doing things with your home. So the first one that we're going to talk about is traditional. So I always start out just with a big picture, and then the next picture that comes up after this slide will be a bunch of pictures showing some different spaces that have a more traditional feel that Lindsey has so graciously put together for us, and that we'll kind of get into explaining some of the details. So traditional, probably the most common here around this area. Just a lot of people have your traditional style homes, and especially if you have those homes that have oak overload, where you've got the oak trim and doors and cabinets and floors and oak everywhere. A lot of those tend to be a little bit more traditional in nature and feel. But overall, the traditional style comes from European decor, and it is, believe it or not, a timeless style that is more of what we describe comfortable and stately. More emphasis is placed on architectural details, and those things can be crown moldings, columns and things like that, wood paneling. So actually in this picture here, you can see we've got the crown molding above the cabinets. Well, there's a second layer of crown molding along the ceiling as well too. Furnishings, drapes, and decor will oftentimes be elegant and can be artful and antique or ornate and decorative. So things such as your chandelier over top of the table here has a much more traditional feel with kind of the scrolling effect. Even, excuse me, the linen shades, the chain that hangs down from a lot of these things have very traditional feel to it. Cabinetry, your raised panel cabinetry can be very, and often is, a very traditional style. So more architectural design elements as far as just the paneling on the sides of the cabinets. You can do that in any design style, but you wrap that raised panel profile around, or even these mullion doors, and those are things that lend even more towards the traditional style. So here's that mood board that I was talking about. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, Lindsey?
Yes, so traditional is kind of an all-encompassing term really for stuff that's been around for a long time. So traditional can go back centuries. So we kind of have taken elements of what was popular in different time periods, and now we consider those traditional altogether. So in traditional design, you see a lot of beautiful woodwork, like you can see in the upper left-hand corner picture there with the coffered ceiling beams. And then the next picture with the beautiful medallion. There's a ton of woodwork that goes on. There's also a lot of curvature in the lines. So those dining room chairs in that same image, those have those curved backs, all the carving. There tends to be a mixture of colors, although traditional can go quite neutral, or it can go colorful. It depends on the time period. It depends on really what you like. But there does tend to be a lot of mixing of colors and textures, and more decor versus the more minimalist style that's popular now in contemporary design. There tends to be more accessories involved. Even in the bottom right picture there, another thing that makes this timeless, that sofa is called a roll arm sofa. It has been around forever. You can't, they still sell it. I still specify these. This one happens to have been recovered. This is one of my projects, but it's a traditional look. It's got a beautiful roll arm. It's got that skirted bottom, and you can't tell what decade it's really from. And that's kind of what makes traditional things so timeless, is you really can't tell by looking at them. Okay, this was really, really, really popular in 1984. No, hard to say.
Yeah. Excellent. So next we move on to contemporary. So contemporary, very on the opposite end of the spectrum from traditional, is more defined by its simplicity. It is very minimalistic, can be described as sleek, having clean lines. There is a focus on a use of textures as well too. The style is constantly evolving, as the name contemporary means. It changes with the times as far as what the style of contemporary is. Even kind of the retro style had a contemporary feel back in that time period, where there was a lot of curves and more bold colors, those sort of things. So the emphasis is on the shape and form rather than ornate decoration, and often pairing straight lines and flowing curved lines. So in this picture here, you see some very contemporary feel. So obviously you've got your countertop, doesn't have any corbels or any supports that can be seen here. That is a very linear look. The door profile on the island and the cabinetry is a slab door profile. Even that range hood there kind of stands out as well too. That has more of a shiplap design to it. Again, very linear. And some of those curves could be taken, and the textures that I'm talking about, you see a lot of that in the veining of this marble looking quartz in the backsplash. Texture as far as this range hood as well too, and then the floating shelves there. And that light fixture is more of a contemporary feel as well too. Your matte black fixtures tend to be a little bit more contemporary looking than your more traditional, looking, and I guess I can't necessarily call them traditional, but you're typically colored like brushed nickel or even chrome or oil or bronze, those sort of finishes. So.
Right. And in contemporary design, there tends to be less going on, but the pieces that are there tend to be more impactful individually. So generally in contemporary design, we see that a lot with the lighting. there tends to be a light fixture that is kind of the star of the room per se. If you look down at the two bottom images in the middle and the right, you can see there's those chandeliers kind of take the place of artwork. There tends not to be as much on the walls, maybe one or two statement large scale pieces, but it tends to be a cleaner, sleeker look, a lot less barely any carving, no detail whatsoever, but the beauty of it is in its simplicity and how your eye is drawn to very specific elements. Take this waterfall island in the upper middle photo. That in and of itself is such a statement with all of that stone, and it's so sleek. Yet there's no carving there. There's no corbels, there's no supports, there's nothing, but it still has those beautiful lines, and that really encompasses what contemporary is all about.
Absolutely. And actually, you know, one of the points that we talked about with the considerations at the beginning is talking about blending styles. You know, this is it's got more of a contemporary feel as far as the furniture and the light fixtures here, but you have some more, what I guess I would call traditional details as far as the wainscoting going around the room.
Absolutely. That is a Hudson colonial house. And then, but the couple who lives in it is very contemporary. So this is actually one of my designs. And so you can still have a colonial home and make it much more contemporary just by working with the architectural elements, not against them. Mm-hmm. And then just adding in your more contemporary furnishings and rugs and artwork. It can blend really seamlessly.
And then over in the top right picture here, this kitchen that was in Akron, this is a contemporary feeling kitchen, but it also has some elements of farmhouse style to it as well. So that's when we're talking about blending styles, you don't have to be 100% contemporary, 100% farmhouse, anything like that. It's all about creating flow in your own personal space in these different rooms. So this bottom left picture here, this was a little bit more of a contemporary feel. You can't see it well in these pictures, but these are actually floating vanities, meaning they don't have a toe kick that goes down to the ground. They're hung off of the wall. So it has more of a contemporary feel, but other elements within this space gives the space a little bit more what's called a Scandinavian sort of feel to it, which that's not, unfortunately, one of the ones we're talking about today, but just an example as far as blending styles. Yeah. So, well, there's contemporary. So we hit traditional, and then we hit the opposite end of the spectrum as far as contemporary is concerned. Now, transitional is this one, and this is actually taking and almost blending those two styles together itself, combining them. So it marries the traditional and contemporary characteristics, simplifying the traditional design style for a classic and timeless style. It is simple yet sophisticated and can have both straight lines and or rounded profiles. So it is the most common design style that people are kind of seeking in this area, in particular because everyone's looking for this timeless design style. Your transitional style can transition through the years because of how simple it is and the way that you can decorate with it. There's no real distinctive defining characteristics like in other styles because it's not too simple, not too ornate. I like to call it the vanilla ice cream of design styles. Now that sounds boring, but vanilla ice cream is boring by itself until you get into adding the personality to it. So what stands out to me in this space here is these beautiful engineered hardwood floors. You've got your pops of color and the, you're gonna have to tell me what that specific shade is called, Lindsay. That one, I can't think of what that, a Roman shade of some sort, but what would you call that?
It's a woven shade.
What?
A woven shade.
A woven shade.
Natural woven shade. Yeah.
So you take some of these elements out of the space and this just looks like a white on white kitchen, but the wall color and all these ways that you decorate the room adds personality and character to the room. So there's actually a really cool edge profile that you may have noticed going around the island too, which the kind of scallop corners. The legs again are kind of ornate, but very simple as far as the straight lines and everything. It's not overly done. So excellent.
Right. So transitional really does blend contemporary with traditional. And it's kind of just in between. But you can also take some elements of contemporary design with some elements of traditional design, and they all work together in transitional design. So if you look, remember I talked about the roll arm sofa in our really traditional living room? Now this roll arm sofa it also has that curved arm, but it doesn't have a true skirt along the bottom. It's more of kind of a wrapped fabric look. So that kind of, it's a little simpler, doesn't have that trim detail, but it's still a little bit more classic. Compare that to the chair that's in that same photo. That is a very contemporary chair. And in the bathroom here, on the upper right-hand corner, you can see that tub is very sleek. And it really, that could be used in a contemporary bathroom as well. But then if you look at the cabinetry, it's more of that rich espresso color that you don't really see a lot in contemporary design. That it does have, Nick, what do you call that cabinet style? I mean, is it shaker?
It's kind of shaker, but it has that little
shaker,
edge detail that you see on the recessed panel there. So
right. So there's a little bit more detail. So that's really common in the transitional style. So it's just kind of a blend of both. And transitional, we haven't talked a lot about color, but you can do anything with transitional design as far as color goes. I mean, you can see in a lot of these, most of the bases are pretty neutral, but then you add in these pops of color to kind of create that life, and you just kind of find a color palette that works for you and build on it. The only room that's really quite colorful at the base is the blue dining room, but the rest have very neutral walls. Then you add in color with your accessories and your furnishings and pillows and things like that.
I especially love this room down here, just how the kind of that burnt orange, the fabric of the draperies, and that coordinates with kind of some of the flowers, and then even potentially those chairs there as well too, to just tie everything in together. And I mean, this orange and then that blue is not something that, it doesn't feel like it's easy to pair those together, but you think of creative ways to bring those colors into the room, and that's what you specialize in, Lindsey. It's very cool to see.
Thank you.
So. All right, well, now on to kind of the most popular one from, as far as what you guys voted as attendees, the modern farmhouse aesthetic. So the focus of the farmhouse design is on the practicality of the space, because when you lived in a farmhouse, you were living on a farm and you didn't want to spend time doing all this cleaning and getting into fussy details of things. It was more focused on simplicity and just the practicality of using your kitchen or whatever space. So but you do have the cozy details and accents. So in this modern farmhouse design, your stained wood features like this X panel on the end of the aisle, the floating wood shelves, and then the beams above all correlate together. Again, there's another one of those shiplap range hoods, and you can see that is kind of mimicked up on the ceiling in between the beams as well too. So modern farmhouse combines the sleek, clean lines of the contemporary style with the cozy natural elements found in the country aesthetic. So features are often natural textures and materials like reclaimed or even whitewashed wood. You get a lot of natural stone, and that can end up being in the countertops, or it could be in some accents of some sort of like a stone backsplash, and then metals as well. So your bronze and steel metals are very popular. Just overall, the space tends to have an element of I guess sometimes has overall an element of vintage decoration, or can go really well with that, such as like these leather island stools here. Overall, those are contemporary in nature, but just the kind of texture, the aging of that leather gives it a little bit more of a vintage look. So, yeah.
Yes, so modern farmhouse tends to be very contemporary in its fixed elements, so the elements that are, the floor, the stuff you can't move around. And then with the vintage look tends to come in with the furniture. A lot of times you'll see a reclaimed wood table, like in the top left there, or an antique piece that somebody has repainted. So that's kind of where the elements of the more traditional vintage look come in. But if you really would strip out all of the detail in most of these rooms, you'd notice that the bones are pretty much contemporary, but then with added wood and stone for some texture. So this really is a very new style. This is not something that we've really seen before about 2010. Really, compared to contemporary, this is newer. And one of the other defining characteristics of this style is that it's very neutral in its palette. It tends to be mostly white, with some gray in it as well, and a little bit of black thrown in. It's very rare to see any other color except for natural green, and natural green with actual plants, not even painted on the wall or anything like that. Once you start adding in a lot more color, it really turns from modern farmhouse to more of that transitional feel.
Yeah. And, you know, in modern farmhouse, or just farmhouse in general, was really, a lot of you might know Chip and Joanna Gaines from Fixer Upper, and they were kind of the ones that have brought this style more into the trends and kind of into the spotlight here. So we're seeing a lot of it, a lot of interest in some of the different features of the style. And obviously shiplap was a term that everybody learned pretty quickly as they were watching Fixer Upper, because Chip and Joanna Gaines did so much of it. But actually, interesting story. We were interviewed by the production company, what's it, High Noon or something like that, that produced Fixer Upper, because they were looking for a remodeling company out this way, kind of the northeastern United States, or maybe even Midwest, something like that. Unfortunately, I think we were probably just a little too boring for them to make a show out of as far as our personalities and everything, but it's still cool to have that web interview with the producer, and just a fun little tidbit there. Anyways, on to Craftsman. This is actually my personal favorite style. It is very masculine in nature overall, but it emphasizes the natural materials, especially wood. The Craftsman style is simple, but will have a lot of defining details in the woodwork and trims, hence the name Craftsman. So furniture pieces can have sophisticated joinery details, and windows and doors will have more prominent but still simple trims, like these windows here have very thick case molding around them, or it probably is just like a 1x4, and maybe that's like a piece of backband kind of over top of it there. I know those are terms that not everybody knows, but again, thicker, stouter profiles, but nothing super ornate or not a lot of curvature or anything like that. So even these legs here, very simple but stout and more of a heavier feel to them. Warm and rich colors go well with this cozy style. So even this sage green backsplash there just coordinates really nicely with the kind of medium stained cabinetry that they have there. So if you live in parts of Akron or in parts of Cuyahoga Falls, you probably have a Craftsman home. So it's a really unique design style that really shows off a lot of cool woodwork around the home. So what are we seeing here, Lindsey?
Yes, so the color palette, along with there being a lot of woodwork everywhere, the color palette is definitely one of the defining characteristics of Craftsman's. It tends to be very warm colors, a lot of oranges, a lot of reds, and the warmer greens. So greens that have that yellow undertone instead of greens that have that blue undertone. There's very little cool colors in Craftsman design. You won't see any gray walls with traditional Craftsman decor. Most all of the wood is left stained instead of painted, but there's some beautiful detail with the wood in a different way than with like the traditional more curved lines, the more carved rosettes and animal heads and all that kind of stuff. Craftsman is a little bit more almost rustic in feel with the way that the wood is designed, but it's still elegant at the same time and very beautiful. As you said, Nick, it tends to be very masculine. And it's a difficult style to truly integrate 100% into a house that's not a Craftsman.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk about your kitchen that you did up there in the top right?
Yeah, so this was actually a home in Hudson, and they had a lot of furniture kind of around their home that had more of that vintage sort of Craftsman feel to it. But they did also have trim work that was painted already. And so this is where we're talking about blending styles. You can take some Craftsman elements like this cabinetry here, just the warm colors that you see, more of, again, this kind of a muted sage green on the walls. And this backsplash tile is actually kind of like a beige, almost a light taupe color, and those natural tones. And you can blend that Craftsman style into your home without it feeling like it doesn't belong. So this, again, this is kind of a shaker door profile, but you can see the doors up here add this additional style right in the center, just to add a little bit more interest to it that has much more of a Craftsman feel to it. The crown molding is simpler. So this is actually just kind of a straight trim here. And then this might even just be like a soft cove trim that was there, if I recall correctly, but which isn't necessarily craftsman, but is tying in with the rest of the kind of details in their home, just so it doesn't feel like you're walking out of the foyer, out of the family room into the kitchen, and you go from traditional to all of a sudden you're in a completely different house. All right, so then we get into the rustic design style. So the rustic design style, probably most of you understand the term rustic, but is all about the natural earthy materials and elements, and often an abundance of them. Now this picture you're seeing here, this is like over the top rustic. This is what Lindsey would call European rustic as opposed to American rustic. Just overall, the spaces are just feature more rougher or weathered wood, flat and unrefined metals, stacked stone and masonry. Just the shapes of furniture as well too, or what they're made out of. Even these chairs here have more of almost like a vintage sort of feel, like this was made out of maybe old schoolhouse wood or something like that. And then they didn't paint it or anything. They just allowed it to have the character and the showing its age. The spaces just overall typically have a darker, more cozy feel with warm tones and darker colors. Yeah, so just, that space, very intimate feeling. You can probably picture yourself sitting down with friends, at least when this whole coronavirus thing is over with, having a glass of wine and just enjoying a nice quiet conversation, in that space. But yeah, rustic can be a lot of things as well too. So that was ultra rustic. Now we're getting into some other pictures here that show some different rustic elements, and more subdued in some of these as well too.
Yes, so I consider this, I call it refined rustic, because most people really don't want to live with an actual, they don't cut down logs and make tables out of them and not actually cover them in polyurethane and make them look nice. It's a little too rustic. We're past the pioneering days. But you can, again, take those elements of rustic and stick them into other rooms that are not necessarily rustic. Kind of the same idea as the craftsman. You rarely see a truly rustic house in this area. But for example, with the bathroom that Anthony Slabaugh and team did on the bottom left there, you can see that even the color of the cabinetry and the finish of it, it kind of lends itself to that more rustic feel without being made of raw boards. And then the stone that they use on the backsplash and the countertops has all of those warm colors, and it's mixed together, and it's kind of got a textured feel to it. So it really is, it's an homage to the rustic style without being over the top rustic in and of itself. And then, for example, in one of my houses that I did on the top right there, the orange upholstery that we used to reupholster those sofas is, in real life, it's very thick and nubby and really, beautiful, but it also has a little bit of that rustic feel. And then there's the basket on the wall, which is extremely, in real life, it's a very rustic basket. And then you've got the carved wood furniture. And so that kind of, it's a little bit of an ode to the rustic without actually going over the top and having a full rustic room, which really no one in the modern day really wants to live like that anymore.
You mean people don't want to live in a cave, Lindsey, or a log cabin or anything like that?
If they do want to live in a log cabin, it doesn't look like a log cabin on the inside anymore. There's definitely not straw beds and an open fireplace,
And I'd imagine this room up here, these built-ins were probably already painted or some other sort of, so to even take this further, if you wanted to make this even more rustic, it would require, replacing these built-ins or figuring out a way to finish them that better kind of blend into that style in your fireplace as well too. So it's again, blending styles, just adding some different elements into a space that take it towards a style that you really enjoy. Something that is very popular right now, just reclaimed wood in general, doing reclaimed wood beams, taking old barn beams and putting them up as ceiling beams or as a mantle above a fireplace or above like a bar or something like that. We've done a lot of that. Or
on the floor, reclaimed wood flooring.
Your reclaimed wood flooring as well too.
Awesome and beautiful too.
Yeah. All right, and then we get into our final style called eclectic. So the eclectic design style, this is more of an artful and full combination of different styles and time periods, textures and colors to create a more collected and comfortable space, something that is very personal to the owner. The style can show off bold and vibrant colors and unique materials and pieces. Could be, you know, like this rug that you see on the floor. Even the flooring that they chose, it may not even be tile. This actually might be like an acid wash concrete now.
It does look like acid wash concrete to me. Yeah.
So just having those different features, you wouldn't typically see this in, you know, like a traditional home or anything like that. And then obviously the elephant in the room here, the large emerald green, I'll call it like a fish scale backsplash tile, which super beautiful and really commands your attention in that room. But yeah, very unique and artful. So the eclectic design style, it steps outside of the box for a more creative and unique space that is all about personality. And these pictures I think are really fun just because you see the pops of color everywhere. So this is a really fun design style to work with.
Yes, it's all about feeling collected over time. It's not this style. I mean, my company's name is Eclectic Interiors. Clearly, I like eclectic design. It's what I do a lot of, but it's not all I do. But it's all about collecting and using what you have and making it fit. And one of the best ways to do that is to build around a color palette. So you can see that in the two dining rooms there on the bottom, the red one and the green one. There's not a lot of commonality among all that's going on there, except that it has a cohesive color palette. So that's really what brings the design together, is like the pops of red in this room. Then of course there's blue too, but blue tends to be a little more subdued. But those pops of red are all kind of in the same intensity, meaning they're all very bright red. There's not a lot of, you know, burgundy and wine colors in there. It's just all kind of that intense red. And the intense red in the pillows and the chairs and the light and, you know, everything else kind of just makes it all work together. And you'll also see a lot of times there tends to be a repeat in shapes. So in the green dining room there on the bottom, we've got the roundness in the Art Deco rug, and then we've got the roundness in the Louis XVI chairs. And then we've got, you know, repeat in colors as well, with all the green in the different spots. And believe it or not, that ceiling tray is green too. It's just really hard to get on camera.
Oh, right there? That's green?
Yes, that's the same green as the walls.
Oh, okay.
It's really hard to
you
see.
really can't tell.
Yeah. But the style is really fun. It really is all about just doing what you love and mixing a bunch of stuff together in a way that is still cohesive and it works. And it's my favorite.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and even so, like this basement that you see up here, it's got some rustic elements as far as the kind of faux brick paneling that's there. And then you have a traditional element that is in, or I guess you could consider this also, you know, craftsman, well, just as far as the simplicity of the wainscot panels and the chair rail and everything there, but then that eclectic feel in the rugs and just combining these different design styles as well too. So just, and this is the same bathroom in that basement actually. So we went with this more of a, what's called concrete tile flooring, and just that is adding your eclectic element, and even the mirrors and those sort of things. Other art and things like that that they would have put on these walls can just further add more character to that space. So it's a lot of fun to work with the eclectic design style. If you really have a passion or just really an interest in bringing in fun, bold colors into a space, you can have a lot of fun with that. So, all right.
Well, thank you guys for attending, and hopefully it was beneficial to you. And we just listed a few takeaways. Hopefully you took away more than this, but at the least, don't get caught up in naming your style. Hopefully the names were helpful, but you don't have to give your style a name, but it can help you if you're Googling or talking to a designer that has that language, but don't get caught up in it if you can help it. Use pictures and visual references to help communicate your style. Don't be afraid to blend styles. I thought we saw some really cool examples of that from Lindsey. So And then lastly, design is personal. Make your home your own for sure.
Yes.
So it's comfortable for you.
And you may have, there may be a design style that some of you are interested in that we didn't get into today, and that was just due to not making this go into an hour-long, 2-hour-long presentation of all the different design styles until you all have a glazed look on your face. These are just kind of the more common ones. If you have any questions about any particular design style, or you have a picture that you really love and you're like, what is this communicating? You can always reach out to us on that. But otherwise, we've got our follow-up poll.
Yes, we do.
This will give us an opportunity to kind of compare. This isn't a quiz, I promise you, but just kind of compare original, results as far as what everybody said to now. That. So, what is the current style of your home? As in, what do you actually see in your home now that you might be able to name it and could still be the same thing? Style, what style? And then the second question, how would you describe your personal style now? How you want your home to be styled?
Well, I
it said the poll got closed. Oh, well, it was closing for us.
That's the first one. Here's the
that was okay. Okay, there we go. Oh, yeah, this looks familiar. I created these polls. You think I would have caught that? How would you describe your personal style now? Yeah, go with that.
And then the second question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how helpful, useful was this webinar?
And if you guys have any additional feedback or anything, that you'd like to give us or have any questions, again, just reach out to us. The next slide that we're going to put up here is just our contact information, our website, websites for us, as well as Lindsey at Eclectic Interiors. So everyone is more toward the transitional style. Again, not surprising at all. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to see that nobody put in, I don't know, I have much more research to do. And then great. Excellent. So again, last thing, if you have anything you want to follow up with us on or any questions, don't hesitate to email us, Anthony Slabaugh Remodeling Design, info@anthonysLabaugh.com. We'll leave this up here for a little bit, that way you guys know how to kind of spell all that out. But visit us at our website. Visit Lindsey at her website as well too. All of our contact information is located there as well. And we'd be happy to get in touch with you, talk about any projects you have in mind, talk about any questions you have about a specific design style. If you're looking to just refresh any spaces in your home and you just need some professional help, Lindsey is a great resource as far as if you're looking to get furniture, choose color for walls, window dressings, decorations, all those sort of things. So, or if you're ready to do an actual kitchen or bathroom or basement or any room inside your house, don't hesitate to give us a call and consider us for your project as well too. So, yeah. Any questions? Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Anything else to add, Lindsey or Joan?
I learned a lot. So thank you guys.
Yes.
And thank you guys all again. Thank you, Lindsey, very much for joining us today, taking time out of your day to be with us.
It was my pleasure.
Everyone that attended, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. And we look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.